Christmas shopping is supposed to be safe, festive, familiar. But for these people, one normal trip to the mall turned into something they'll never forget.
Last December, I went to the mall alone to knock out some Christmas shopping. I had a list of people I needed gifts for, and luckily, I live close to a massive mall. It has multiple floors and pretty much every store you could think of. I had ideas in mind, but I also knew I'd probably find more while I was there. I arrived early and ended up staying the entire day. I even picked up a few things for myself. Since it was the holiday season, the mall was packed. There were tons of other shoppers, which made everything take longer than usual. As the hours passed, I collected more and more bags. By the end of the day, it felt like I was carrying around 10 of them. My hands were completely full. That night, I finally left and drove home to the house where I lived alone. Once inside, I started unpacking everything. When I got to one of the last bags, something caught my attention. It was from a clothing store, and all my items were inside. But there was also an Apple AirTag. I knew I hadn't bought one. At first, I wasn't even sure what it was, since I'd never used one before. Once I realized what it was meant for, I couldn't stop wondering how it ended up in my bag. I hadn't visited the Apple store. That's when it hit me. Someone might have dropped it in there intentionally to track me. I started getting extremely paranoid. I'd already been home for about an hour. I went around the house, checking every window. When I reached the front, I noticed a car parked across the street with the engine running. The headlights were off, but I could see exhaust smoke in the cold air. I couldn't make out who was inside, but I could tell someone was sitting in the driver's seat. Cars parked on my street sometimes, but paired with the AirTag, this felt different. I watched the car for nearly 2 minutes before it suddenly pulled away, without ever turning its lights on. That made my stomach drop. I didn't know if I was overreacting or if someone really had followed me home. I covered all the windows and searched online for how to disable an AirTag. I managed to turn it off and threw it in the trash, hoping it wasn't already too late. Several hours later, late into the night, I was in my bedroom when I heard my back door rattling. Instantly, everything came rushing back. The AirTag, the car. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. As I cautiously stepped out, I could hear someone still at the back door. I told the police everything. About a minute later, someone knocked on one of my back windows. I didn't dare look. Then it stopped. Minutes later, the police knocked at my front door. They searched the area, but whoever it was had vanished. Nothing strange happened after that night. I think whoever tracked me saw the police and never came back. The fact that someone could slip an AirTag into my bag without me noticing still gives me chills. This strange experience happened a few years ago when I worked in an office building downtown. I enjoyed my job, and most of the people there were great. We had a Christmas party planned one night in a large room on the first floor. I completely forgot about the gift exchange until I got home that evening. Realizing the party was that night, I rushed out and stopped at Target to grab something. I wandered around for about 20 minutes and picked up a decent gift, something like a Bluetooth speaker. The party wasn't cheap either. The gifts were supposed to be nice. Afterward, I parked on the street near the office since it was free and went inside. There were about 30 people there. Not long after arriving, I noticed a woman sitting alone on a couch, scrolling on her phone. I'd never seen her before. She looked at me a few times, but never approached. Later, she came up to me and said hi. She immediately told me she didn't work there, and then admitted she saw me at Target and followed me. I didn't even know what to say. She laughed like it was no big deal. She asked if this was where I worked and suggested we leave the party to go to a nearby bar. I said no. She kept insisting. Eventually, she walked away and sat back down, texting again. Later, I saw her trying the same thing with another guy. He also said no. When she came back to me one last time and I refused again, she suddenly left. I followed at a distance and watched her get into an SUV with 2 other men inside. That's when it clicked. I don't think she was interested in me at all. I think she was trying to set someone up. When I was 10 years old, I went Christmas shopping with my mom. One night, we split up in the mall for about an hour. I felt old enough to handle it. While shopping alone, a man approached me and asked if I was by myself. After that, I kept seeing him in every store I entered. Eventually, I knew he was following me. I panicked and made a terrible decision. I left the mall. He followed me into the parking lot, across streets, and toward another shopping center. I finally lost him inside a grocery store. I made it back to the mall and told my mom. The man was never found. I didn't shop alone again for a long time. A couple years ago, I was waiting in a long checkout line while Christmas shopping. After about 15 minutes, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "I see you." They followed it up with, "I'm in line with you." I looked around but couldn't figure out who it was. When I got another message, "I can still see you," I panicked. Later, in the parking lot, I spotted a man sitting in his car watching me. More texts came in. I walked back into the store and asked a couple nearby to help me. When they approached the man's car, he drove away. One final text came through after. "Why did you do that?" I blocked the number and left. A few years ago, I was shopping late at a mall decorated for Christmas. Inside, I noticed a man dressed as Santa, but something was off. His clothes were dirty and ill-fitting. Later, after the mall closed, I saw him again in the parking lot. As I sat in my car, he suddenly lunged at my door. I locked it just in time. He screamed and pounded on my windows, trying every door. I reversed and barely escaped. I called the police, but never heard anything afterward. It was the most terrifying Christmas shopping experience of my life.
These stories still haunt the people who lived them.